First of all, thank you so much
Thank you.
for being here with us. I want to ask you a few questions.
Sure.
First of all, tell me a little bit about the relationship you have with yourself.
With myself before the accident?
Both.
Both. So who is on social media? Who's using Facebook? Everyone. Have you ever put your relationship status complicated? My relationship with myself before I was here was so complicated. It was all about people. It was never about me. There was no me anywhere. You see, people's pleaser. The person who just wants to make everyone happy knowing that it's not worth it. You just keep doing it. And yes, your relationship eventually with yourself becomes complicated. And then now, I don't know where there are people around me or not, but I'm me now. I'm more me now.
That's so nice. What advice would you give to your younger self?
To my younger self. Interesting question. Well, I'll just make her sit next to me, and very nicely I'll tell her, don't invest yourself in the wrong people. Because when you invest yourself in the wrong people, they break you into pieces, they torn you apart in such a way that it takes years and years to get back together. And also I'll tell her that while you're busy making amazing plans in your life, my dear, prepare yourself for worse. Because life is so unpredictable. Just be prepared.
One of my philosophies in life is that there are 3 steps in order to repaint your life. First of all is to change your personal story, then your daily rituals, and then the people you surround yourself.
Yes.
I believe so much in this. So tell me how important is to surround yourself with the right people.
Time is a beautiful teacher. It filters out the extras from your life, including people. Being in the wheelchair in 12 years, I've met 3 categories of people. Number 1 category is of the people who see you in the misery, in pain, and they back off. They're like, we are gone, we can't handle. I respect them for their honesty. Then there is another category of the people who are not there with you, but they just want to cling on with you all the time. They're so weak that they try to stay in your shadow. Liberate yourself from those people because they are toxic for you. Don't let them cling on to you because they're not there to help you. Liberate them. Liberate yourself. And then there is 3rd category. These beautiful people who are so selfless that when they see you in pain, they stand next to you. They've got your back. They don't share the limelight. They are just there for you. These are your people. Value them. So yes, there are 3 categories of people. Try to surround yourself with those who are real, and you will feel real.
Okay. What about jealousy?
What about?
About jealousy.
But jealousy.
Yeah.
I pity them. I pity those who see their failure in your success. You know, these critics, they were once dreamers. They just wanted to achieve something that today you have, but they gave up and they started becoming jealous of you. Pray for them because they're in a lot of pain.
One of the things that I see usually when I do therapy, a lot of women, they prefer to stay in a miserable relationship instead of get out.
Yeah.
The fear of being alone is greater.
Yeah.
So would you give some advice to these women?
We all tend to invest ourselves in relationships. And as I said, if you are doing something right with the wrong person, nothing good will turn out. And deep inside, we women are quite intuitive. We know that it's not going anywhere. It's okay to be on your own. You are stronger than you think. Don't worry about that. And wait for the right person. Let the right person come to you. There's no rush. Are you in a good relationship with yourself? Do you love your own company? If you're miserable alone, I'm sorry, your partner will be miserable with you. So we need to understand that we need to love our own company. Only then people will love to enjoy our company too. And don't rush. Wait for the right person. Because if it's meant to be, it will be.
One of the things I usually say is that your relationships reflects your self-relationship. So the most important thing is to look within, to fix the most important relationship, that is the relationship you have with yourself.
Yeah.
Muniba, I want to ask you, how do you want to be remembered?
Such a beautiful question. I want to be remembered as an empath, somebody who just didn't say that I feel your pain, but I want people to see that when I say this, I mean it. And as far as my life story is concerned, I don't know how my story will end. Maybe it will never end. But yes, nowhere in my text the world will ever read I gave up.
Apart from art, what kept you going in life?
I think all sorts of art kept me going. I love music. I used to sing. I still sing lullabies for my son. And just like painting, art, music is so therapeutic. So I love music.
I don't know if the crowds would love that. If it's okay with you, would you mind sing something for us? Just to listen to your voice.
Have you watched Tangled? Tangled, Rapunzel, her journey, how she comes out of confinement for the first time. She goes out and sees the world awaits her. You know what, that song, I See the Light, it reminds me of the times when I was bedridden. And I used to hear the kids playing outside. I couldn't see. I used to hear thunderclap. I couldn't see the storms. I used to hear rain falling on the ground. I couldn't see it, and I missed it. But when I sat in the wheelchair, I stepped out, went close to the nature, everything changed. So this beautiful song, I See the Light, probably something that I'd like to sing. All those days watching from the windows, all those years outside looking in, all that time never even knowing just how blind I've been. Now I'm here blinking in the starlight. Now I'm here, suddenly I see. Standing here, it's oh so clear, I'm where I'm meant to be. And at last I see the light, and it's like the fog has lifted. And at last I see the light. The sky is blue, and it's warm and real and bright. And the world has somehow shifted. All at once, everything looks different. Now that I see you. God bless you. God
Thank
bless
you so much. Thank you so
Most
much.
welcome.
Thank you so much. Ad Antonio μου, Antonio Mu.
Here comes the chief guest.
Yeah.
He's so adorable. Oh my God.
Good afternoon, and thank you, and wow, I am so privileged and so honored to be sharing this afternoon with all of you and these incredibly amazing women that are being honored today. I'd like to extend my congratulations to each one of you, Octavia, Michelle, Kelly, Patty, and all 50 women that have been included in the Impact Report. Your achievements not just inspire me, but also so many others to work harder, to be better, and to make a dent wherever we can. So I'm very, very proud to be standing alongside of you. So in life, you know, there are moments when you stop and ask yourself, how did I get here? Like, why am I standing here? Well, this is definitely one of those moments for me. And I find myself going back to the beginning, back to my roots. I was born to incredible parents, amazing parents who served as doctors in the Indian Army. I was the firstborn, and as far back as I can remember, I made my parents very proud and happy 99% of the time. Okay, slight exaggerations of personal achievements are allowed from time to time, don't you think? My brother was born a few years later, and even then, nothing changed for me. We were both given equal opportunities, and I want to emphasize this. I want to really emphasize this for you because I don't think a lot of people might understand that being equal might seem very normal. But where I come from, India, and a lot of developing countries around the world, more often than not, this is an exception. It's actually a privilege. My first experience of the glaring disparity between boys and girls came at a very, very young age. I grew up in a middle-class family with extremely philanthropic parents who constantly reminded me and my brother how lucky we were and how giving back to those who were less fortunate was not a choice, it was a way of life. Simple. I was 7 or 8 years old when my parents started taking me on these visits in a traveling clinic to developing communities around and villages around the city that we lived in called Bareilly. We were packed into this ambulance, and my parents would provide free medical care to people who couldn't afford it. My job at the age of 8 was assistant pharmacist. So I would count all the medicines, put them in an envelope, and give it out to patients, and I really took my job very seriously, very seriously. But the more I went on these expeditions, the more I began to notice the simplest things that distinguished a boy from a girl, or a man from a woman. For example, girls were pulled out of school when they hit puberty because they were considered ready for marriage and babies. That's 12 and 13, while boys still enjoyed their childhood. Or basic human rights, such as healthcare, were denied just because they were women. Let's call this whole experience trigger number 1 for me. Fast forward a few years and many, many triggers in between. Like a producer-director, for example, early on in my career, I must have been about 18 or 19, telling me that if I didn't agree to the ridiculous terms or painfully low salary in his movie, that he would just replace me. Because girls are replaceable in the entertainment business. That was a memorable one. Made me decide to make myself irreplaceable. But I think what really moved the needle for me and ultimately led me to create the Priyanka Chopra Foundation for Health and Education, and around the same time partner with UNICEF, was an encounter with my housekeeper's daughter. About 12 years ago, I came home from set early one day, and she was sitting in my library reading a book. And she must have been 8 or 9 years old, and I knew she loved reading. So I asked her, I was like, it's a weekday, why aren't you in school? And she said, oh, I don't go to school anymore. So I went and asked her mother, and I said, why isn't she in school? And her mom said that her family couldn't afford to send her and her brothers to school, so they chose the boys. The reason, she would eventually get married, and it would be a waste of money. I was completely blown. and it shook me to my core. Eventually, I decided to cover the cost of her education so that she could continue to learn, because education is a basic human right. And a huge necessity, especially today. From that point on, I was determined to make a difference in as many children's lives as I could, in whatever big or small way that I could contribute. There's a really, really beautiful quote that I read recently, and I think it's absolutely appropriate to explain what I'm trying to say today. The hand that rocks the cradle, the procreator, the mother of tomorrow, a woman shapes the destiny of civilization. Such is the tragic irony of fate that a beautiful creation such as a girl child is today one of the gravest concerns facing humanity. Girls have the power to change the world. It is a fact, and yet today, girls are more likely than boys never to set foot in a classroom, despite of all the efforts and progress made over the last 2 decades. I'm just going to give you a stat, more than 15 million girls of primary school age will never learn how to read or write, compared to 10 million boys. Primary school, it's the beginning of our future. Over the last 11 years, I have witnessed firsthand the incredible work that UNICEF does for children around the world, especially victims and survivors of child marriage, displacement, war, sexual violence. But there is still so much work to do. And for me, that is the fuel to my fire. The reason I'm so committed to this cause, and that is where my passion stems from, because I know that a girl's education not just empowers families, but communities and economies. A result of her education, we all do better. It's just as simple as that. As entertainers and influencers sitting in this room, I feel that it's our social responsibility to be a voice for the voiceless, which is why I applaud each and every woman in this room for being such a badass. For using your platform and your voice to contribute to change, and for ensuring that there is not even one lost generation as long as we are alive. I'd like to thank Variety and all of you for encouraging me and all of us in this room to keep going and fighting on. Thank you so much.